I was 16 years old when this all started. Before that, I was a straight A student playing basketball, water skiing. I was a very active, healthy person. 8 months after I got sick, I started using a wheelchair
Mm.
and was stuck upstairs in my bedroom, couldn't go up and down the stairs, and couldn't continue all of the things that I love to do. I couldn't walk from my bedroom to the bathroom or from my bedroom to the kitchen. I couldn't repeatedly move my hand from a plate to my mouth. There was a lot of doctors saying this is all in your head, but often there's a root cause that's contributing to why someone develops those symptoms in the first place. I made a recovery bucket list. And looking back at the recovery bucket list is quite incredible because some of those things I do every single day now.
I would just love to hear a little bit more about your story, kind of where you began, maybe some of the things that were happening to you early on when symptoms started to arise and you were sort of thinking, what's going on here? And then the progression into a wheelchair, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I was 16 years old when this all started. And before that, I was a straight A student. I was playing basketball. I was water skiing. I was a very active, healthy person. And I started to get flu-like kind of symptoms. The first symptom actually was very obscure. It was an itchy rash on my toes.
Mhm.
And then it progressed into flu-like symptoms, low-grade fevers, fatigue, that kind of thing. And within a couple of weeks, it was hard to even be able to keep up with school and all of the regular things that I did.
How old
And
were you then?
yeah, so at that point, I was 16.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was 16 then in grade 11 and started going to as much school as I could and trying to catch up at home, but not feeling great. And within maybe 6 weeks or so, I started to develop severe light sensitivity. So I started not being able to go out of the house without special sunglasses and even eye patches in the car because even with sunglasses, it was just too bright. And the fatigue was getting worse, started to spend a lot of time in bed. And then about a month after that, that was the first time I started having trouble walking. So this is within all a couple months. Symptoms started end of January. And in April, it was hard to walk a couple blocks to get to school. I was stumbling on the street. We very we've gone to obviously many doctors by this point, and nothing was detectable on any tests that they had done. And so they were kind of throwing around maybe at first, like they were saying just some virus, and then they were throwing around chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. But we were saying, the light sensitivity doesn't make sense with that. And the rash on my toes didn't make sense with that. So in a way, it was lucky I had those symptoms because we knew like that can't be it. Like
Mm.
that can't be the full picture of what's going on. And now I know those might be symptom-based diagnoses, but often there's a root cause that's contributing to why someone develops those symptoms in the first place, right?
Mm.
So we ended up hearing about Lyme disease from my mom's friend was talking to a friend at an exercise class whose friend daughter had Lyme. Or something like that, had a really obscure connection. And so my mom got on the phone with her, and my case sounded just like their case. And so we ended up getting me in to see a Lyme specialist in New York, which was about 4 months after I got sick, which is quite amazing because a lot of people actually go on for a very long time with Lyme disease, being
Mhm.
undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, believing that they just have chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, but really there's something more going on that's causing those symptoms, right? So very quickly, they said that I was the classic presentation of Lyme, and so I went on treatment. And then we started with very conventional treatment, antibiotics, and then started adding in more holistic treatments. And I did get better a little bit for the first couple months. When I say a little bit, like at first it was starting again hard to be out of bed, but then I started to maybe spend a little bit more time out of bed. And then all of a sudden I had big worsening reaction that September. So I guess 8 or 9 months or so after the symptoms started. And I couldn't walk from my bedroom to the bathroom or from my bedroom to the kitchen.
So did you start with, did you say holistic treatments? Were there
Yeah.
Western medical um, drugs prescribed that you decided not to take, or?
So I was still doing them. I really integrated things. So I integrated the antibiotics with detox support and with microbiome support, very heavy duty probiotics, that kind of thing. So we didn't forego the conventional treatment,
Mm.
integrated it with some of the holistic treatments. But at that point, I didn't know about limbic system retraining yet.
Mm, mm,
Most treatments I was doing were not focused on my nervous system. And it was a huge missing piece for a number of years. I was taking 100 pills a day, whether they were conventional or they were, huge omega-3 pills or um, disgusting probiotics that you had to pour into a cup and drink, and you knew that it was 450 billion live bacteria in a cup. And it was so hard to get it down, but I did it, twice a day.
yeah.
Right. And I did that for a couple years, and maybe there were little bits of improvement, but in that time I was in a wheelchair. So it was
Mm,
about 8 months after I got sick that I started using a wheelchair
mm,
and was stuck upstairs in my bedroom, couldn't go up and down the stairs, and couldn't continue all of the things that I love to do. The only thing that I continued doing was once a week I would volunteer at a bowling program for kids with special needs, because that was something that was really meaningful to me. And I found that it was really helpful to have a sense of purpose in that time because I was
mm,
dead
mm.
really 24/7, except for those 2 hours that I would go out of the house and my mom would help drag me down the stairs. And I would sometimes often actually sleep on the bench at the front door because I couldn't make it back up the stairs when I got home. And I would drink out of a straw because I couldn't even feed myself.
So your energy was just so zapped. You had such chronic fatigue that you could barely lift your hand to your mouth.
Exactly. And there were actually many months like that where even if I hadn't gone out, I couldn't repeatedly move my hand from a plate to my mouth. So I
Mm.
was dead in bed, lying down with a towel over me to catch all the food that was dropping all over as a family member would be with me and spoon feed me. And
Yeah.
then there would wait for several months around then that I had severe jaw problems and I couldn't really open my mouth properly. And so I couldn't chew. So I was having pureed food and soup for months, spoon fed to me if I could even open my mouth to fit a spoon into my mouth.
Mm, mm. That's such an intense place to be in after having such an active, childhood and things like that, and then progressing degeneratively into a wheelchair and then into a bed to a point where you can barely move your hand or even your mouth. What was sort of the psychological state at that point?
Yeah, I would say the very beginning of my illness was really hard. The first couple of months when I started to spend a lot of time in bed, my mood was very down. And I still remember a doctor saying to me, like, you must be depressed. Your life has gone down the tube. As if that's helpful in some way. They were essentially trying to say, well, this must be because you're depressed. There was a lot of doctors saying this is all in your head.
Right.
I don't know that I was clinically depressed, but obviously who wouldn't be in a low mood if they just
Absolutely. I mean, it's very depressing when that's very, it's hard not to be depressed when I think people don't quite grasp as well the chronic fatigue and how it's not just fatigue. It is so heavy in your body that the thought of movement is really, you just, even thinking about it is like strenuous because it's so hard to just move your body around. And when you can't move, and then all of a sudden, often your social life starts to disappear and things like that, and the world becomes very small. And I know with a lot of our clients, um, that's the narrative that they have a lot as well, as it's all in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And which is very harmful. And I think that's something we can get to, talking about limbic system work, but I think it's so important that we never reinforce the idea that's in people's heads, because people have so much emotional charge around that from all the times that they were dismissed by, people in their lives or medical practitioners who meant well, but really didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine were there moments where you lost hope? And was there anything that sort of helped you hold on to hope? Or did you sort of have an inner belief that things would get better?
It's such a great question. I actually don't know that there was a moment where I lost hope. There were moments where there were grief-filled moments of like losing another thing in my life, like losing,
Mm,
the ability to continue in the same grade at school, losing the ability to go to sleepover camp was a huge grief-filled loss.
mm,
I actually don't know that I lost hope of getting better. I think there were a couple factors at play. One, this was so absurd almost. Like it was so like I'm a healthy person at heart. Like I think maybe I knew that. And it was just so outrageous that somebody who was 16 could all of a sudden end up in a wheelchair unable to feed themselves. Like there had
mm,
to be a reason. Like maybe
mm.
there had this is not something that just happens. Like our body, maybe in some way I believe that our bodies are designed to heal back then as I do now. But like this kind of thing shouldn't just happen. Like there must be things that can be done about it. Was probably part of
Yeah.
the process.
You had an inner optimism, given back then. Did you have any case studies that you found of recovery or anything like that from states that sort of gave you that hope or?
Well, I did. So when I was in bed for really all the years, um, often what I would be doing was reading research while
Mm,
I was lying in bed. When I would have the energy, I got an iPad because I couldn't sit up to use a computer, but I could at least lie down or be on like a special recliner with an iPad in my hands. And I spent a lot of time reading research. And then I also spent a fair bit of time on some of the Facebook groups and things like that. Even before Facebook groups were a thing, I had joined a teens with Lyme support group that was on some really random website. But even knowing that there were other people who were going through the same thing was really encouraging, and people who had
mm,
gotten better was
mm.
really encouraging. And I think that's part of the power of community,
Yeah,
right? Which is
yeah,
something IHF offers that's so incredible.
yeah, yeah. I think it's one of the key components. I think it just speaks volumes. Like I've met with so many practitioners over, the career of building the business, and the practitioners with the most depth of experience and that are hands down best at helping other people get through conditions are ones that have been through the depths of it. And it's because, and especially the ones that have been bedbound, there's not much else to do other than often research and things like that. So you end up, having spent years researching. So you just, have such a depth of knowledge, which is, I love that, you have that and you can present and help with the clients. What was sort of the,
Yeah,
sorry.
I had so much research on even just the various treatments that were being offered,
Mm,
whatever I was doing in these support groups, what the, well-known clinicians in the field were offering, what functional medicine doctors were offering, that kind of thing. And I was fortunate I had a lot of family support. I have incredible family and even friends who really stopped by me and would come to visit in bed. And, I think that was part of my recovery too, in terms of community. My mom always said, we're gonna figure out how to get you better. It's just a matter of figuring it out, right? Like,
yeah.
we're gonna get you
Yeah.
better, we need to figure out what the ingredients are gonna be, and we just we're willing to try many things to get there.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this before the call, but just it's that hope, right? Giving people the understanding that it's reversible. Whatever's going on, it can be fixed. Because I think there's such a lack of that, because often when you go through most of the systems, they'll tell you that it's going to be lifelong. And so then there's a narrative that starts running that you're dealing with something that's going to be lifelong, and you're telling yourself that constantly, and it starts to fixate. And so breaking people out of that false perception, really,
Yeah.
and helping them understand that you can really fully reverse these chronic conditions is just like the important first key step, because so many people have tried so many things as well, right? They've probably spent most of their money, if not all of their money, just trying everything and anything. So when it comes to another thing, it's like, oh, well, is it going to work? You know, is it going to be just
Yeah.
another thing? You know, how did you maintain that hope that, you know, something's going to work? I just need to figure it out. You know.
Yeah. You know, I do think my mom's support was really instrumental. You know, she was really taking care of me during that time, and of course, other family members were helping also.
Mhm.
But we really just continued to believe that I would
Yeah.
get better and say so, and we found ways to have joy even amidst this. I mean, we would lie in bed laughing together when I'm stuck in bed, or, there's pictures of me in bed on my birthday with my grandmothers sitting in my room, like, on my bed with me, um, because we were going to celebrate my birthday. We were going to do all of the things, family gatherings, even
Yeah.
put bed,
Right.
even everybody else was downstairs. We had a whole holiday celebration with everyone downstairs and me stuck in bed, but people would come alternate visit me upstairs, and I would be on the phone on speakerphone with people who were downstairs. It was
Amazing. So you had that love and support around you that
I
could
did
really carry you through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also having the community support of knowing people were going through this too, I think was really helpful. One of the things I did that I actually have wanted to offer as, a potential exercise with, IHF clients in the Limbic calls,
Mhm.
I made a recovery bucket list. And so I was constantly adding to this list when I thought of something that I couldn't do. Instead of focusing on the fact that I couldn't do it, I focused on the fact that not only did I want to do it one day, but I would be able to do it one day, and it was just waiting there for me to check it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that was a very hopeful thing and very empowering, even if it was almost just in the background. Like, it
Yeah.
was just a note on my phone, maybe. But
Yeah.
in some way, it was just in the background that there was a recovery bucket list, that there
Yeah.
was a list of things I want to do that I would check off. And I've checked off so many of them. Unbelievable. It's also interesting to look back at the things that I wrote. I mean, some of them were, big, like traveling and things like
Mm.
that. And some of them were like stand in a lineup.
Yeah.
Putting by
The
they have to
thing
stand.
everybody else hates doing, but you know, when you lose the ability to do it, it's like, actually, that would be great if I could do that.
Exactly, things like that. And looking back at the recovery bucket list is quite incredible because some of those things I do every single day now.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it as much every time that I do it now because it's become part of my norm. But
Mm.
standing in a lineup was a huge thing. It was even like going out twice in like 2 days back to back. Milestone when I did that, even if it took days to recover.
Yeah. Yeah. Cultivating that why, right? You know, we do that quite early on in the program and help people cultivate why do you want to get better? Like what's on the other side for you? And kind of helping reimagine what life can be like. Because I think a lot of our clients have been chronically ill for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you know, and they don't remember what it's like to have that energy and to be able to interact and do things in the world. What was the turning point in your recovery journey?
It's a great question. I would say probably the turning point was doing the nervous system work.
Mm, mm,
I think I did have a foundation of having addressed a lot of the biological things that were going on before I started the
Yep.
limb work. I had done, you name it, I had tried it, kind of treatments, biologic, but I still had only gotten so much better. I was still at that point, I guess I was starting to occasionally use a walker, but I really what at it. And actually I started craniosacral therapy was the first more nervous system oriented approach that I used. And within about 6 months after starting that, that was when I started to use the walker probably. So starting to do nervous system oriented treatments, craniosacral was the first one. And then soon after that, or about within a year after starting craniosacral therapy and more like nervous system oriented physiotherapy, I came across limbic system work. It's still unbelievable how much it changed everything. It's still so mind-blowing. And I remember a couple doctors had mentioned it. So this was like for reference, this is now 5, almost 6 years into when my health experiences started.
Yep.
Almost 6 years later, I was still using a wheelchair or a walker and,
Yep.
not really going out much and struggling to do much at home and trying to keep up with, do some school at home and researching and all of that. And a couple practitioners all around the same time, within a month or so, maybe 2 or 3 of them mentioned limbic system work. Specifically, they told me about dynamic neural retraining system, DNRS. And what they told me about it was that it was a brain retraining program that they thought would help and that you had to do an hour per day. And I remember thinking, like, I don't think I could do an hour per day. Like I don't think I have that in me. Like, I have no energy. Like, how am I supposed to add something else to my day for an hour? Like, that was my reaction to it.
Yeah.
So it was in the back of my mind. And then it was, the first time someone mentions it, maybe I dismissed it, but it's in the back of my mind. Somebody else mentions it. It's like, oh, that's funny that 2 or 3 people all told me about this in such a short, time frame. And I was starting to get curious, but I was like, I wonder, like, they're saying that this is helping their clients or their patients. I wonder if it could help me, but I just, like, don't think I could give an hour of energy to something else. Then I got a concussion. It was such a silly thing. I was doing laundry and banged my head on the dryer. And what I learned from that experience was that my nervous system was overreacting to things. You should be able to bang your head on the dryer and not become bedbound for another 6 months.
Yeah.
But very soon, within a few days of banging my head, I lost my ability to do everything again. I was back in a wheelchair after having used a walker for about a year. I could barely walk again. I could barely function again. And so to realize that what was happening was my nervous system was overreacting to things, and my symptoms, including my body-wide fatigue, were being caused by some nervous system kind of thing, like maybe neurological inflammation or overreaction, but my whole body reacted to something happening with my nervous system, my brain. So that was very eye-opening. And very soon after the concussion, maybe a month after, like once I was, able to function a little bit, and even be on screens and stuff again, I started DNRS. And by that point, I had had this severe light sensitivity for 6 years. And so the first thing I started to target with DNRS, with the limbic system retraining, was the light sensitivity. I thought that was just like an easy thing I could do. What else it would help? I thought it was just going to help like sensory sensitivity. So light was easy. And within 2 weeks, the light sensitivity started going away. After 6 years. Like, it's incredible how powerful this work is. And so I would visualize every day, even if it wasn't for the full hour, sometimes even if I was doing 20 minutes. Ideally, of course, the hour would be best and would help with the progress the most. But even if I was doing 20 minutes, I would visualize something like I'm on the beach and I feel the sun on my face and it feels warm and it feels invigorating and I feel alive. Instead of, oh no, sunlight, oh no, it's aversive, right? And it started to create new connections in my brain that is enjoyable, it's not aversive. And within 6 months, the light sensitivity was gone.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's
Maybe you
incredible.
can introduce those that haven't heard of limbic system retraining, or maybe don't know much about the nervous system. Like, what is this, and how are we fixing it, and how is it helping us?
Yeah, for sure. So your limbic system is one of the parts of your a significant part of your brain. If you were to divide your brain into three parts, there's really the cortex, which is at the top, which is your most cognitive part of your brain that is responsible for planning and big movements that you make and thinking and, those kinds of cognitive features. And then the lower part of your brain, so we talked about the cortex, the lower part of your brain is your brainstem, which is the part of your brain that takes in sensory information from your body and from the environment and makes very quick decisions, and it also keeps you alive, right? So it takes in this information and starts to combine it with information about emotions, specifically in the periaqueductal gray area in your midbrain. It starts to combine the information with emotions and what you're taking in from your body and your environment to say, is this safe or is this dangerous?
Mm.
The cortex, we talked about the brainstem. That middle part is your limbic system. So the limbic system is composed of multiple parts. You may have heard of the amygdala, for example, that react to, various things that we take in and are very much responsible for our emotional experience.
Mm.
And
It's sort of interpreting the outside world a little bit.
yeah,
The body is interpreting, is it a threat or is it safe? And the body's reacting to what's happening. Mm.
exactly. Yeah. And it starts to contribute to your emotional reactions, your physical reactions to things, but also your emotional reactions,
Mm.
react with fear,
Yeah.
you know, how
Is there a tiger in the room and should I run? Type thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And is there a tiger in the room? Should I run or should I freeze?
Right.
Right? We start to have different kinds of reactions also, which interacts with other systems in your body, like your vagus nerve, for example.
Right.
Right? And so what limbic system retraining is essentially doing, it's doing multiple things. When you do limbic work, you're actually rewiring your brain. There's this concept that a very, very well-known person named, his last name was Heb, came up with, that the concept is neurons that fire together, wire together, right? So if you envision, like I did, that light is enjoyable, you start to have neurons firing together at the same time. That
Mhm.
right, envisioning, feeling the enjoyment, and envisioning the bee,
Or
and feeling calm in your body. All of those are firing together in different neurons in your brain, and then
so
they
it's
wire.
creating new neurons as you have those visualizations that then start to wire together.
Yeah, and it may be creating new pathways between existing neurons, right? Because
Right.
there's our brain is not set in stone. Neuroplasticity says that the brain can rewire, right? And we have so much power to rewire our brains, and sometimes we don't realize how much power we have to do that. But
Mm.
it shows you that you have so much power
Mm.
to really influence how your brain reacts to things, right?
Isn't
So
that the most amazing thing? That
it's amazing.
your brain can be wired in such a way over time, over maybe continuous traumatic experiences or health conditions or whatever it might be, continuous input of something to the point where it closes your world down, and shrinks your world down. And then your brain's sort of, caught in this space. We can actually rewire it. We can actually rebuild it. This is the most phenomenal thing ever.
It's completely phenomenal, right? And it gives us so much power back because often when we have health issues, we feel like our power is being stripped away from us, right?
Mm.
And we're told that there's nothing we can do, or we believe that the power was maybe all in, medical practitioners' hands, and we don't realize how much power we have to help ourselves too. Of course, we need the medical professionals to help us through it, but we also have a lot of power ourselves, and limbic work really emphasizes that. And so you're creating new brain networks so that these things, are no longer aversive, so that, even movement is no longer aversive, and smells and chemicals and food sensitivities, all of those kinds of things, those sensitivities start to fade away when you start to make these new neural connections.
Right.
And piece of limbic work also is that you're calming your brain, right? So you're also helping yourself get into what's called a parasympathetic state. So that's your what's called rest or digest state. When you're calm, your body feels safe, and that's the state that we heal in, right? And our cells can heal in that state. So whatever's going on physically can also have the chance to finally heal when we're not in that hypervigilant fight or flight kind of state.
Mhm.
And then also limbic work, in order to rewire our brain, part of the limbic work is creating a lot of positive emotion, right? For example, I'm at the beach and it feels so amazing. It creates a lot of positive emotions that release neurotransmitters like dopamine and endorphins in your brain. And these neurochemicals actually help to create new neural connections and new synapses in our brain.
Mhm.
So that helps to form the new synapses. So not only are you forming these new synapses inherently because neurons that fire together wire together, but you're creating the neurochemicals that allow that and facilitate that to happen.
Mhm.
It, it's an amazingly enjoyable experience, right? You're
Mhm.
getting to envision everything that you have wanted to do, some often favorite childhood memories or memories from before the symptoms have started, or future visualizations, things that you want to be doing. And you envision it as though it's happening right now.
Mhm.
And people often say that the brain doesn't know the difference between something that's real or something imagined, right? If you imagine that there's somebody about to spook you from behind, for example, you can feel what your body does. You know, you might get chills, you might get tense, you might get heart racing, even though you imagined it, right? Even
Yeah.
though nothing real right in the room is happening,
Yeah.
right? The same goes for limbic work. Our brain doesn't know the difference necessarily. So when we envision these things happening right now, it starts to show our body that in our brain that this is safe and we can do this and it doesn't need to create an aversive reaction. It doesn't need exhausting. Right. And then the other piece of limbic work that I love to integrate is the more body oriented or what's called somatic piece. So envisioning these, favorite memories or future visualizations, or in a really present oriented way where you can feel it in your body. So you're not just envisioning it as though it's something far off, but you're envisioning it as though it's happening right now and you can feel that in your body. So, what it's like to feel strong in your body. Like, oh my God, I could move really freely. Like, oh my God, like my arms could just move and I could just like run. Oh my God, I could run. There were so many times when I would do limbic work that I was like, oh my God. Like sometimes I would even do the little motions in the moment. But I was like, oh my God, I can run. Like I can stand and I could feel that in my body. And I think that's a really important piece too. So we start to sense our body sensations as safe.
Mhm. So you mentioned maybe we could dive a little bit more back into the shifts that happened for you. You said that you had that light sensitivity and that just started to reduce quite quickly. I'd love to hear about that. And then maybe after we can talk a little bit more about the limbic exercises and things like that, because I think, some people really enjoy doing this work and some people find it the hardest thing ever because it's like, I've got to take time and I got to sit down and do this visualization thing and these exercises that go with it. And like, I don't have time for that, you know? So
Actually,
yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about like that recovery process for you and how much it changed now that everyone has a good sort of fundamental understanding of limbic system and a bit about the nervous system and things. And then we can move a little bit more about that.
sure. So the light sensitivity improved so much, and I was so astounded that it could improve so much. So I started to think, well, maybe it could help other sensitivities that I was having. I was having terrible smell sensitivities, like cooking smells were really, really hard for my body and my brain to tolerate. Environmental sensitivities, those kinds of things. So I started to envision some of that. Like I was at a campfire and I could smell the smoke because I would react to cooking smoke. So I thought if I could envision the campfire, maybe that would help. And it did. The smell sensitivities just started to fall away, and I think other sensitivities also all started to fall away, even if I wasn't targeting them specifically, because my brain was starting to get into a less reactive, more calm kind of state where I was teaching my brain that these things are actually safe. And I remember realizing that something that was important was that these things are not actually harmful. Like our brain and our body have reacted to them for so long that we can start to believe that they're harmful, which makes sense based on our experience. But light is not harmful, and foods are actually nourishing. They're not harmful, and smells are neutral, if, maybe good, not harmful, right? So that was really important for me to realize. And I started to use the limbic system retraining for other symptoms that I was having. Movement, I would start to, as I said, envision that I was, moving, walking, running, water skiing. That was something that I couldn't wait to do. And when I finally went water skiing after visualizing it for years, my body just did it so instinctively. It was so incredible. And I did not just one lap around the lake, but 2 laps around the lake because I felt like I totally could. I was supposed to let go after 1 lap and I just kept yeah. So it was amazing. And then I started to use it also for feeling focused on waking up with energy, because waking up was a challenge. I used to feel very exhausted in the mornings. And so I started to use it for envisioning, oh my God, I wake up and I feel like myself and I have so much energy. And that made a huge difference too in my functioning. And so I actually still do a limbic round every morning because I just find it's the best way to start my day. It is not only so enjoyable, but it gets me feeling grounded. It gets me feeling energized, connected to myself. It gets me more awake, I would say also. It's almost like my morning coffee. Some people have their
Yeah.
coffee
Yeah.
background, and
Yeah.
then it will start my day,
Yeah.
which I think touches on what you were saying, Scott, of, people feeling like, how am I supposed to fit this in? Right.
Yeah. And
Even
how long before,
yeah,
maybe just before we get into that, how long was it until you started to see results quite quickly? But you're
yeah,
still basically at a point where you're in a wheelchair, it's not a walker, mostly bed now. You started to do these exercises, light sensitivity eased up, food sensitivity eased up. How long and how consistent were you with it until you started to really see
yeah,
difference change, you know?
yeah. I would say I mean, everything was gradually improving at that point, like,
Mm.
in a way that it never had before. Symptoms that had never budged, all of a sudden were improving. So it was kind of it was one symptom and then another symptom and then like, oh yeah, remember I used to react to that and I'm not even aware that I'm not reacting.
Mm.
But for me, one of the big markers was when I could walk again without support. I could walk more around the house. Like I started to not use a wheelchair around the house. But again, I don't have a marker of exactly when that was because all of these things start to really naturally happen.
Everything, yeah, yeah.
It all started to just kind of fall into place more. It started to gradually be easier to do all these things. And it wasn't like, oh my God, I think I'm going to leave my wheelchair at home and let me see. It wasn't like that. It was just like naturally like, oh, I'm just like walking on the street in it. Oh. But there was one moment where I trusted my body enough to leave all assistive devices at home and could go across the street to the park without any assistive devices. And that was 2 years after I started the limbic work.
Mm.
But there was a significant process of, I had been bedbound for years, and I
Mm.
had been homebound for, or largely homebound, at least for, 6 years before I started the limbic work.
Mm.
So it was a process of reconditioning and all of that. Um, but I started to actually, I played basketball before, even with a walker. I brought my walker just in case, and I brought my walking poles just in case. But I played basketball 6 months after I started the limbic work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was a bit,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I remember taking a video of me doing a layup, and I can still play that back because it was such a huge moment. I was like, oh my God, look how my body's doing this.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And I think that gives a lot of hope on timelines and things like that. I think it's different for everyone, right? Malia, who's one of the teachers in our program, she was absolutely bedbound 6 months, and yeah, within 6 months, she was out of bed and operating again. And the timeline's different for everyone, and maybe we can get into a little bit now about how do you find time for this sort of stuff, and how do you consistently do it day in and day out, and how do you cultivate the belief in it? I think the people that have results really early on understand it, get it, and so I think some people can feel it a bit more. You can feel those emotions and things that come up, whereas others are more difficult to feel those
Yeah.
emotions. Yeah.
And it's interesting. And sometimes we can be disconnected from our emotions because we've had so many physical health challenges or, disconnected from sensations in our body because we've learned that it's not safe to feel these things.
Mhm.
And we kind of start to feel a little bit out of our body, but that actually makes it harder to move, right?
Mhm.
To, feel like your best self. And so limbic work can actually help with that too.
Mhm.
But I also, at first, I was like, you're telling me I'm supposed to add an hour of things to my day? Like, how am I supposed to have the energy to devote to this?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, thank God I did. Thank God I figured out a way to make the time for it. That's what I would say to anybody. Like, it is so worth making the time for this.
Mhm.
Actually, it gives you so much more time back, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
almost a small investment of time that pays off huge, huge dividends.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's an hour after your round, you feel a little bit more energized. Maybe it's immediately. Maybe, round being a limbic system round, which is a set of steps that we do. Maybe it's, a couple weeks later. Maybe it's a few months later or 6 months or a year later where you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better and I have so much energy to do all the things in my life that I want to do.
Mhm.
It's so worth finding that amount of time per day. And it
The
can be,
best
yeah,
the best financial investors, right, are the ones that, play the long game. And
yeah.
so you invest a few pennies here and a few pennies there, and you hang on to it, and then eventually that starts to multiply, and you get more money back and more money back. And it's the same in this way. You're investing your time into something that's rebuilding your brain and body. And so slowly things start to come back online, and all of a sudden you're getting, an hour of clarity in the day. Whereas before you had complete brain fog all day, you couldn't see, and you're not sleeping at night and all those things. And then all of a sudden you start sleeping at night, and then that gives you another big window that, the next day, and then things start to grow and expand to the point where you're like, maybe I can play basketball with the walker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That you start to have and you start to have more energy and also more like belief in the possibility that like, wow, I could do these things. I could have energy.
Mhm.
Right. For me, like doing the Limbic round in the morning was really helpful to have energy in the morning. If I didn't do that, I might have lied in bed for 3 hours, not having energy. But because I invested that, 20 minutes in the morning as part of the total for the day,
Mhm.
I then would have energy to do things. So it gave me hours back.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So I would say there's ways that we can figure out together how to make the time for it. But I think believing that this is going to help you is really important because if something's going to help you, it's worth the time.
Yeah.
Right. I would also say habit stacking, which is something that IHF supports.
Mhm.
You know, doing your limbic system round, the set of steps you can carve out time for it at the same time as you do something else or, right before or right after you do something else. So for example, for me, it's in the morning before I have breakfast. I do my limbic system round, so I get up, I brush my teeth,
Mhm.
and then I do my limbic system round. And the rest of my day happens afterwards. Then I go and make breakfast. Personally, that works for me. But that way it's not like it gets forgotten about. It's not like
Mhm.
I start my day and it gets lost, and I feel like that could happen if we get maybe just busy with our day, unless I find, unless we intentionally make time for something,
Mhm.
other things fill our time.
Yeah. There's always something else. There's always something that can fill it in.
Exactly.
I find that in my life, it's there's always something else to do. For my meditation practice, I do try to do at least an hour a day, and so finding that time, it's always there for me, but it can just disappear when you're like, your mind's like, oh, we'll just do this, and then we'll do that, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that, and then it kind of comes to the evening, and you're like, oh, well, you're tired now, so we'll get it tomorrow.
Right. Exactly. And
Enforcing that, yeah,
yeah, and maybe you like scrolled on your phone for 20 minutes or something, which like, felt comforting in some way, maybe.
yeah.
But what if you had used those 20 minutes to do a limbic system round to help heal your brain and your body, Like, there's so many ways that we can fit it in. I used to even do it while I was doing ionic foot bath, which was
Mm.
just to help calm your nervous system and detox and, other factors. but I would my limbic system ran while I was doing a foot bath because it was 20 something minutes. And I was like, I'm not doing anything else. I could scroll on my phone, but this is a perfect
Yeah.
time to do my limbic round.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing you mentioned there, just with it just sort of came up for me for men in terms of the emotional connection and the suppression of emotions and things like that as well. I think in a lot of different cultures where, as boys, and I know this is true in New Zealand, it's don't worry, bro, she'll be right, harden up. So you wouldn't show tears, there wouldn't be any sort of crying or anything or expression of emotions as a young boy. You were told to just sort of like button up and suppress, basically. And I think with, the difference with men and women in terms of like these exercises and things like that, I think maybe sometimes it is a little bit harder for men to connect with the emotions because we've been taught not to do that. Um, have you found men having trouble in that area at all? And is there any exercises that can help them?
I think in general, it is, typical that men have unfortunately been conditioned to not feel their emotions or to be told, oh, like, almost like, men shouldn't cry, which is such a horrible statement.
Mm.
They're human and humans have emotions,
Yeah.
and emotions are meant to be felt. Emotions are messages about what's important to us and what matters to us,
Mm,
right? And emotions are energy in motion.
mm,
They're energy that moves through us that's meant to move through us. And if we don't allow ourselves to feel them, they can get very stuck. We can end up with a lot of extra emotions because of, things that we pushed away, that we repressed, or
mhm,
repress our emotions through anger or through, a specific emotion.
mhm,
But there's a lot of exercises that we can do to help this. As much as we can be, conditioned to learn one thing, we can also unlearn it, right?
mm,
And
mm,
that's part of
mm.
the beauty of limbic system work. And as part of what I'll work on, in our limbic system calls with IHF is, what's it like to feel an emotion in your body? Many of us, men, and even people who are, other people are have never even known what it's like to really feel something in their body, feel emotion in their body. Like when we feel an emotion, there's this misconception that emotions are just like a thought, right? That's just like something cognitive in our brain. But if you think about when you feel like joyful or fear or anything like that, we actually feel the emotion in our body,
Mhm,
right? You feel tense or you feel burning or you feel buzzing or you feel, like, your posture changes, that kind of thing, right? There's a theory of emotion called the James Lang theory of emotion that says that we feel emotions in our body. It's not just something cognitive. And so we can use that, together to practice what it's like to feel emotions in our body and to start increasing our awareness of what different emotions feel like, what it feels like to feel them in our body, and then integrate that into our limbic system rounds where we can feel, oh my gosh, like I'm at the beach and I feel amazing and I feel like myself and I feel the joy in my chest
mm,
and feel the ease in my shoulders, those kinds of things, right? So
mm.
working in the limbic system calls can really help with this.
Yeah, yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah,
And
and you
the emotions are part of the life experience and that they move through us and they shouldn't be stuck in it. They stuck within us. And when we stop them and hold on to them, they do get stuck. And when they get stuck, that can cause a lot of issues and it can cause a lot of underlying stress. And I think there's a lot of men and women that just have this low level anxiety. All the time. It could be held in the stomach. For me, it was always in the stomach. The lower stomach can be held in the center, in the chest. It can be held in different parts of the body. Um, but these sorts of exercises can help people connect with that, understand how to process and release them, and feel more into those positive emotions that we all want to feel more of. Um, do you feel like the limbic system retraining is sort of the missing piece for a lot of people? And I know you were doing a lot of different things in terms of microbiome health and all that sort of thing. But the actual training of the limbic system and the nervous system, is that getting overseen by Western medical system or what's going on there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yes, I would say absolutely yes. The limbic system retraining is often a very overlooked and missing piece for people, and you'll often hear of people who have done so many medical treatments, conventional, integrative, holistic treatments. They've done all the right things. Maybe, you know, they've eaten a healthy diet, they've taken the medication, they've done the treatment, they've done the herbals, the detox, whatever it is, and they're still not better. I would absolutely think about limbic system work in that kind of case. I would also think of limbic system work as foundational for these things. You know,
Mm.
so I think limbic system work is a crucial part of a treatment plan, especially if somebody's being, you know, chronically ill or has a complex picture for, you know, and especially for a long time. Limbic system work is so important. And it, you know, not everybody, not all clinicians and practitioners know about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll often just address the physical side of things, which is,
Mm.
of course, important, you know, but we also need to address how the brain is taking in information and reacting to things and how our limbic that play with that.
Mm.
So I think limbic system work is very overlooked in conventional treatments and even in integrative medicine
Yeah.
circles. And I think the more that people can know about it, the better,
Yeah.
because it has the power to change people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, so many times if I ever put out a, offering for a position to work for IHF, people were like, the top practitioners like, oh, wow, you're doing these things together. No one's doing these things together. These things need to be done together from my experience, and they're always so excited to chat with us because they're like, wow, you guys must be getting great results for people.
Well, I thought when I saw the IHF program, I was blown away. I was blown away by how it combines diet and microbiome with
Mhm.
some work, with community, all of these
Lifestyle
elements.
and epigenetics, which is all of that sort of thing. And there's so much science behind it all now as well. Like all of this stuff, it's not like woo woo. There is a lot of studies. There's numerous studies on all of this stuff now that it works.
Exactly. There's so many studies on how and why this works
Mhm.
and how and why it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what's it been like for you since you've been with us, guiding others through the journey, from where you were, and now being able to pass that wisdom on to them and watching them go through the journey?
You know, it's been incredible. It's been completely incredible. Uh, it's been empowering. You know, I think part of how I maintained hope throughout my illness was I believed that I would make something good out of this. That was something that was, you know, maybe within a few months of my illness, I started to realize I'm going to make something good out of this. And now I'm making something good out of this. So,
That was the same for me, actually. I was like, I want to get myself better because I want to help other people. And this could be a really great way that I could help other people, sort myself out, and then I can, pass on the knowledge. And it takes a while. I think it takes many years sometimes to come across this information, but finding it feels like it's like a treasure. I sometimes describe it as like, humanity discovering math or something like that. It's like we should know this. This stuff should be taught in school. How is this not taught? I was frustrated. I was like, are you kidding me? The information's here. It's been available to everybody, and it's been kind of like, glossed over. And I think for whatever reason, the Western system and the mainstream systems haven't taken advantage of the knowledge. And it's very clear that it works, like very clear. After 3 years of working with hundreds of clients, it's very clear that it works. If you implement, it will work. So it's like, yeah, frustrating
yeah.
sometimes, but
Yeah, exactly. It really, like, we're not taught emotional literacy. You know, we're taught,
yeah,
you know, language literacy, but not our emotions.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Or, you know, what our body's telling us or anything like that, or how to even know what our body's sensations are telling us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so I know you're passionate about learning, and I think you've probably had that passion cultivated from a very young age, and you're discovering lots of things along the way and how it can help other people. And in your progress and in your research and things like that, you're also, from what I've observed, you're a very compassionate person and you're looking to contribute to society in any way that you can. And I know that you've won a number of different awards. And I asked you in our interview, tell me a little bit about the award you won. And you said, which one? We've been contributing since such a young age, and I think you found that having a bit of more of a why and a purpose, and yours happened to be helping others, has really helped you along the way. I think it was the Queen's Jubilee Award was one of the ones that I saw on there. Um, it's amazing to see you win these awards. And then also now you're studying as well. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what you're studying and what your sort of vision of the future is.
Yeah, for sure. So you're completely right. I always wanted to help people. It's just a matter of how I was going to do that, right? So I was volunteering with kids with special needs for years, and that's where I won multiple awards. And most of that time that I was volunteering, or at least a few of those years, was throughout my illness. It was the one thing that I continued to do. And so that Queen's Diamond Jubilee Award was around the beginning of my illness, which was awarded to a select number of Canadians. And then I was also one of 25 people in all of Toronto, where I live in Canada, which is a city of millions. I was one of 25 people who was selected for the Volunteer Toronto award, the Legacy Award, for commitment to volunteering. And that was later on in my illness because I continued, volunteering and helping kids, learn how to tie their shoes for the first time when nobody had the patience to sit with them and teach them. Or And so once I was better enough, I was still using a walker at the time, but I started university, and last year I finished my undergraduate degree. So I completed my bachelor's degree in psychology with a focus in kinesiology and health science to connect the mind and the body. And I also, in order to look at health and wellness and neurodevelopmental challenges from a psychoneurobiological lens, looking at all these components together, because I really don't believe that they can be separated. So I completed that, and now I am in naturopathic medicine school at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in order to become a naturopathic doctor. I've completed my first year and I'm just going into my second year of the program, and it's a 4-year program. And it's the only accredited program in all of Canada to become a naturopathic doctor. So that was something I was so passionate about through my own experiences, because naturopathic doctors really focus on addressing the root cause of health issues and looking at mind and body together, and, really getting to know their patients and their whole stories, and, really helping them through that, not only helping with symptoms, as naturopathic doctors definitely help with symptoms, but also addressing the underlying cause.
Mm.
So that's where I'm at now. But at the same time, I also I work as a health coach privately, focused on really nervous system regulation. And I see a lot of people with Lyme disease or other complex chronic illnesses. I get a lot of calls from somebody saying, what did you do to get better? Or I know this person who's tried everything and they're not getting better. What would you recommend? So I see people where I help do what I call the What Now consult to help refer them to other resources. Maybe it's a limbic system retraining program. Maybe it's clinicians globally or locally who might be able to help with the specific thing that they're facing. But I also offer personalized meditations, nervous system regulation exercises, somatic exercises. I completed a certificate in health coaching with Imperial College London. And I also have done some training in internal family systems therapy, so we can address the different parts of us that, maintain protective roles. And then I also work as a research assistant, a social media manager, and website designer with Dr. Ruth Landius. She's a internationally recognized expert in mind-body trauma and the neurobiology of trauma. So I redesigned her website to make the information really easily accessible to people, because so much of this information can be stuck in research and people don't understand how to apply it in real life, or,
Mm.
how to actually understand it. So I really focus on translating the research for
Mhm.
so that people can use these important research findings in very actionable ways.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing to you kind of look back through your journey and your one in particular sounds like a very challenging journey, but you get to this point now where you have like all of this understanding and wisdom of how to rebuild the body from, absolute, malfunction essentially. So now you have all of this wisdom together, and within the IHF program, you're our key limbic system practitioner. Where do you feel or see sort of limbic system work going in the future? Do you think there's a path for it to go into mainstream?
It's a great question. I mean, I would love to create more network connections with practitioners to help it become more mainstream. And when we say mainstream, I mean, there's so many different directions of that, right? Like, you know, integrative holistic circles is a really important area, where naturopathic doctors could be aware of limbic system work and refer their patients to the programs. And then there's also, medical doctors who take a much more conventional approach, but they don't even know that limbic system work exists. And if we can have really strong research of how this works and present it to clinicians, I think that we could get more buy-in from other clinicians who could then either refer their patients directly to a limbic system retraining program, or refer their patients, to, IHF, or to, a clinician like ourselves,
Mm.
you know, who understand where limbic system work can play a role and what might have been missed. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
For example, I just created a connection with a psychotherapist who referred a patient to me because she saw a patient with multiple chemical sensitivities and really felt like she didn't know how to help. But she knew that the IHF program and the limbic system work could be really helpful. So even just having a clinician know who to send someone to when they're stuck and they don't know what to do with hypersensitivities like that can be really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I have two more questions for you. Um, if you could go back and speak to yourself at your lowest point, but what would you say?
What would I say? I mean, it's funny, there's so much emotion with this.
Mhm.
I would say you can do it and continue to believe in yourself. And also, it all works out. Like,
Mhm.
really don't think it's working out. It's working out. And everything that's happening to you is happening for you.
Mm.
And keep trusting yourself.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's worth it to keep trying and to keep hanging on and to keep on the path that you believe in of getting better. It's worth it. It's completely worth it.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for taking the time. Yeah, it's really amazing to have you in our community as one of our lead practitioners, and I know the community has, learning a lot from you, and has gains a lot of inspiration and wisdom from you. And yeah, just thank you for showing up and doing what you're doing in the world. You're a really amazing being, and feel very privileged to have you with us in the IHF program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. It's such a privilege to be here, and I look forward to being able to help many more people through all of this. Yeah, and I think the warmth of IHF is, I want to say unprecedented. Like it really, it's an incredible environment that you are creating, that we're all creating together, for practitioners and for clients. It's amazing. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah. No, it's just a matter of finding the right people, right? Getting the right people together, and I don't have to do anything, because when you get those right people together, then it's all taken care of, because everyone's such wizards at their own skills and modalities and things like that, and everyone has such a heart. They want to collaborate together and always looking to improve and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier.